Like Randy said, my story, 22 years of it, has been very long and very hard. I'm still coping with everything. Um, excuse me. I do want to start off by saying that mental health, especially when you're growing up and trying to learn your body and learn your brain, it can be a lonely battle. People don't know how to help you, or people don't understand what you're going through. It's something we often don't talk about, even when it's eating away at us, because how we fear what we say is going to be misunderstood. I've learned that the path to understanding our minds could be challenging, but when we finally understand it, it could be very rewarding. So, I grew up in a military household, Marine Corps to be exact. What I grew up with was discipline, strength, and resilience, excuse me. I was proud of my parents, don't get me wrong. They went to Iraq and Afghanistan and they fought for our freedom. But they are a special breed of the military. They endure hardships that many of us can't even imagine. But when you're raised by Marines, there's an expectation to that, and that's you must endure as well. Emotions for me had to be managed, but to be also kept in check. I was never allowed to be vulnerable. Toughness was always a virtue, and I was always taught to put on a brave face. For a long time, I thought that strength meant excuse me, burying anything that could be considered a weakness. All the thoughts in my head running at a gazillion miles an hour, I had to bury that. Mental health in a military household, not something we really discussed. It was something I had to learn to hide. For years, I didn't have the language to describe what was happening inside me. I remember being overwhelmed by what I know now to be signs of anxiety. Back then, in elementary school, middle school, I just thought I was different, a little too sensitive. I moved around from 3 different states, bouncing between my grandma, my dad, my mom, and then back and forth. I thought everyone felt the way I did. When I looked around, though, no one else seemed to be struggling with what I struggled with. Why couldn't I handle all of my school assignments or all of the other things normal kids do without any stress? It wasn't until I reached about 18 when I realized I wasn't too sensitive. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But that is something I will come back to. But for now, I want to focus on how it looked like through the lens of growing up with military parents. The Marine Corps raised me to believe in things like toughness and control. And no matter what, you marched forward. When I began to experience things like rapid mood swings, going from high energy, hyper focused, and filled with ideas to crashing into depression, not wanting to get out of bed, like Robin said, not wanting to do any self care, I didn't know what was going on. When I reached out for help, my parents, they loved me. They still do, no matter what. They didn't understand. They didn't have the tools or the language to understand mental illness in the way I needed them to. I remember moments when I felt like I was about to lose control, and I still do. The world felt too loud, too fast, and my emotions were either running wild or locked down tight, almost though I was at war with myself. But in my world, in a house shaped by military expectations, talking about emotions, about not being okay, was like admitting defeat. It's like you're waving a white flag, surrendering to everything that is going inside your head or your body. At that time growing up, I didn't know I had autism as well. It was something I couldn't even consider. But looking back, the signs were there. My difficulty with social situations, always standing in the corner with a cup in my hands while everybody else was having a good time. Sensory overload in crowded places. I don't like to go grocery shopping unless it's 6, 7 o'clock in the morning because of how many people are there. The need for routine. For me, it was always get up, get ready for school, go to school, come home, sit at the table, do homework, eat, shower, and go to sleep. And that was my routine. But also the extreme sensitivities to sound and light. It all makes sense now. But back then, I was always told I was just being difficult or too much. It made me feel isolated. But when you grow up with Marines as parents, the message you get is clear. You don't get to be difficult. You adapt. You conform to your surroundings. As I grew older, mental health challenges became harder to ignore. My mood swings, my intense emotions, my struggle with social interactions all built up. But at home, I still felt like I couldn't express anything. I was always, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and doing whatever was asked of me without being able to open up. It was their way of surviving by telling me to toughen up because that's what they did, but it wasn't mine. When I turned 22, everything came to a point. I reached a point where I could no longer deny that something was going on. I couldn't keep pretending. I had spent most of my childhood years trying to push through everything, trying to make it work, thinking that one day maybe the chaos inside my head would just calm down, but it never did. It was at the age of 22 that I was finally diagnosed with autism, childhood post traumatic stress disorder, and bipolar disorder. Getting that diagnosis was a bittersweet moment because, one hand, there was relief that there was something that I was told to deny growing up. It was there. Nobody just wanted to look at it. But it was also a lot to process. The CPTSD, I later understood, was a result of me growing up in environments filled with unpredictable emotional climates, rigid expectations, and the tensions that came with military life. It didn't help either that my father had a lot of anger issues. And that is where mainly all that traumatic events leading up to the PTSD disorder came from. The environment I was in was emotionally overwhelming in ways that a child shouldn't have to endure. The moves, the long absences, the lack of emotional connection. It all made sense. It made sense on why I felt so alone. Bipolar disorder, too, explains the emotional highs and lows that has always confused me. The manic episodes, the creative bursts, followed by deep crashes into depression. I wasn't too dramatic or too sensitive. My brain chemistry was just wired differently from, say, the another 16-year-old going through the same, school steps, the same homework. And autism, that one kind of shook me, especially with looking back at my social interactions, all the routine disruptions. It helped me see myself in a new light. The world wasn't too loud. It was just my brain processing everything in a way that was different. Now, I do want to be clear, getting diagnosed with all this didn't immediately fix everything. It didn't make the pain go away or erase the years of feeling misunderstood. What it did do was give me a roadmap to understand myself and my brain. It gave me a reason to start seeking help and to finally accept that I didn't have to go through all this alone. I didn't have to keep pretending I was okay. Next steps for me: therapy, medication, and learning about self compassion, not beating myself down whenever I feel like have a mental breakdown. Taking deep breaths when conversations get hard. It's still a daily journey for me, and it always will. New days bring new experiences, but I have the tools, the knowledge, and the support system that I need to face these challenges. And lastly, I do want to say, if you're out there feeling lost or like no one understands, please hear me. You're not alone. Mental health struggles can feel isolating, but there are always ways to find help. There are people out there who will listen. Just because your struggles don't look like everyone else's doesn't mean they aren't real. Your experiences matter and your voice matters. If you're struggling, don't wait until it breaks you. There is help out there, and there's always room for healing. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So, thank you for hearing about my story, and don't be afraid to share yours.